Hey, my name is Roy Canterbury. I'm your host on Archery Talk 101, and we have Andy on the line with us, and we're going to find out what's going on in his exciting world of archery. And looking at your background here, you have lots of animals in the background, so I'd like to hear about some of those stories. Welcome to the show. Introduce yourself. Let us know something about you.
Thanks, Roy, for having me. My name's Andy Holst. I obviously an avid bow hunter, really since I was probably 4 or 5 years old. Been shooting, and I mean, I just love it. I was in the industry for quite a few years in retail, and I'm out of the industry now. But obviously, I still love to shoot and obviously hunt and all that. So glad to have me.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure talking with archers all over the world. Everybody's got their own unique stories, and I just like hearing them. Talk
Oh,
about
I love
archery.
it.
That's the thing. We just talk about archery, and you're shooting bows, whether we're shooting at spots or targets or foam animals or real animals, trailing them, tracking them, cleaning them, cooking them, eating them. All the fun stuff.
Yeah, just today at work, I was talking with a coworker who, he's an older fella and he found a bow in his basement, and I, gave him everything I could to get him on track. He's like, I think I want to start shooting it. I'm like, you absolutely should. It's just, however you want to take the sport, just have fun with it. And
Yeah, that's the thing. You just got to have fun with it, and um, you're shooting compounds, recurves, or which style bow are you shooting?
I shoot a compound. It's actually a little bit older Bowtech, 2015 Bowtech Prodigy I shoot.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
A
I
little
used to
bit
be one
older.
of those guys where I would have 7, 8 bows, but I really just have the one. I have a backup bow, but that's just a Bowtech or a mission that I have for backup in case it was to break on a hunt or whatever. But
Yeah, it's nice to have a couple bows, such at least you don't have to depend on one. If something goes wrong, you can go the other one. And then being a bow tech, I got 3 bows and ain't none of them ready to shoot right now. So yeah, I gotta get one of them working here. It's our archery season's already started, and I just got to get it out and finish getting it set up. I put a new string on it and haven't completely got it set up. Once doing that, and hey, it just time to do it. You get busy doing other things, and something's got to fall.
yeah, my Bowtech this year was kind of a struggle. I, new strings and cables on it. And soon after I got that done, one of the limbs broke. But when
Oh,
the limb broke, I was only out of bow for about 4 days or 5 days. They got to fix pretty quick. So that was cool.
yeah, that's good when they can send it out. They're pretty good at service. A lot of your bigger boat companies are really good at their service, and you can get stuff turned around pretty quick, and you know, especially if you have a dealer they can ship it to. They don't like
Yeah,
shipping
being a
parts to
little bit
non-dealers.
older, I was definitely worried that they would have it, but they did, and I got it out right away.
Yeah, that's good. When it breaks and you can get it back going right away. And that's why we like to have a second bow, because you can always go
Yeah,
to the other
exactly.
bow.
I mean, I actually hunted opening weekend with my backup because it happened like literally the Thursday before opener here in Wisconsin, and that was a
I
little disheartening, but yeah, it was all right.
I had that one time with a bow. I was getting, shooting, getting ready, making sure things all good for hunting season, starting the next week. I think next week or 2 weeks, I forget what it was now. And my bow broke, non-repairable, because the riser broke in half.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, it was a American Challenger. High Country bought them out, after they come out, but it was one of those poured risers.
Yeah, the
And
magnesium kind of, yeah, poured.
yeah, they're kind of prone to having defects in them. And when you're shooting at 70 pounds, the defects will show up a little quicker. And so then I went out and, had to wait for the bow to come in, and I went out and bought another bow, because I couldn't depend on, 2 weeks later, I got to go get a bow. And so I got one and got it all set up and went from there. But yeah, that was quite an experience. I was going through, I was trying to get it set up, and I couldn't get it sighted in, Every time I'd shoot, I'd adjust it and I'd shoot again. I have to adjust it again. And finally I decided, okay, I'm gonna go right up close to the backstop and shoot. And that's when I shot. And then I'm holding the bottom half, and the top half comes back and hits me in the chest. So
Yep, it was on its way out.
yeah, it was failing, but I couldn't tell, because there was no obvious signs of it, other than the fact that I kept changing my pins and changing my pins and changing my pins, and thinking about that was kind of a sign something's going on.
Now that you bring that up, I noticed that with my Bowtech before it finally broke, I had to make some small sight adjustments, and I'm like, I haven't had to do that in a long time. And I kind of look back at it, and I'm like, it was definitely showing a sign before it actually let loose with that limb.
Yeah, so that might be something for our listeners to think about. Is if your bow is all set up, it's working same, no, nothing changed, nothing, all of a sudden something starts changing on it, and then it's changing and changing, something's getting ready to fail. So be careful, check it out. Who knows? You might not have ever known it until it failed. There may not be any visual signs that it was failing, but there might have been if you knew to look or wanted to look or tried to look. That
Sure. I mean, I could.
yeah, how would you know? Unless you start seeing a visual crack showing up. On the bow I had, I don't think I ever did see a crack. It just, when it failed, it just went all at once, just snapped. And it was after it wasn't when I was at full draw, it's when I shot is when it broke.
Sure.
So I was at full draw, but all the force from shooting snapped it the rest of the way. And that's why I just come back and I think hit me in the chest instead of, all of a sudden at full draw, the limb comes back. That would have been probably a face plant.
Oh man, that would not be good.
No, that wouldn't be good to have it come back and smack you in the face. And I was down at the range all by myself. So
Back in the days of the Golden Eagle, we got a shipment in at a shop I was working for, and it was like 7 out of 10 of the bows, the limbs failed first time we drew them back. And all of a sudden it's just like the poundage just left. There wasn't anything violent or anything, but it's still like they just, all the tension just let up, and you could hear the limbs cracking, and they were done.
yeah, that's not a good sign when you get a bunch of bows in and they're all doing it.
It was that was quite a few years ago, back in the late 90s.
Yeah. Yeah, the technology's gone by so much better now that
Oh yeah.
you're not generally going to have that kind of stuff happen too often, as long as you haven't dry fired your bow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, dry firing a bow is definitely going to mess something up. Some bows will take it, some bows won't take it at all, and hopefully you can get by with it.
There's always the potential that my bow was dry fired. In kind of a unique and crazy story, I got it from a local shop that I helped get a stolen bow back for, and they gave me a huge discount on it, but it was their display model, that they used when they first got the Prodigy in and took orders off of it. So it wouldn't shock me if it was dry fired at some point in its life before I ever owned it.
Yeah, it could be, hanging up in shop. That's why a lot of the shops they'll put ties on them or something so that you can't draw them back. Because people do that. They don't know it. Somebody new, they'll just draw it back and let go of it. I've seen people, it's like, do that. And it's like, what are you doing? Well, I'm just trying it out. No, you just destroyed that bow.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you do a lot of 3Ds or target or just hunt or?
I guess for practice, I mainly do 3Ds. I'm here in southeastern Wisconsin, and I mean, especially leading up to the season, it is, I mean, there's every weekend within a pretty short drive, there's somewhere for me to go. There's one that I always like to talk about that I never miss, called the West Dallas Bowman Safari Shoot.
Yeah.
I've actually been shooting that one since 1987, and they have targets that they've had since 1987, a lot of homemade targets, but you'll shoot at full-size elephants, tigers, mosquitoes, just like some very unique targets. And that one's a lot of fun every Labor Day weekend. So, yeah.
So I know, in your background, for those that are listening, your background, I can see, what, 6 different deer back there. So
yeah.
I know you got some stories on them. So what was your most challenging hunt
Most challenging. Actually, that would have been this one right here from last year. I was hunting Shawnee National Forest, and you guys will all remember last year the heat that we had in the beginning of November.
Yeah.
And you know, this is land I've hunted since a little kid, and I had to really rethink things because of how dry it was. I actually went and scouted a really long creek for creek crossings, figuring a water source. And the day that I scouted it, it was like a 7 mile hike that I did. It took me like 4 hours to do it. And I found two spots, and I went in the next day, and I actually my first hunt in there. But it was a lot of scouting. I mean, for an area that I've hunted my whole life, I'd never hunted down where I was at before. And it was a lot of work to find that and just really kind of give up everything I've known from the past and kind of regroup.
Yeah, when you have all of a sudden you have a lot more heat than normal and less water, you got to kind of find where they're going to be at, and they're all going to change.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely different last year. I mean, some of my really good spots really weren't panning out, and I finally made the adjustment and it worked. It was
Yeah,
actually a very exciting hunt too. There were two giants that got in a fight across the river from me, and it was like something I've never heard before. Just you could just tell by the depth of the sound of their antlers that they were big, and it actually called this buck in. He came to investigate, and I eventually got him. It was probably 20 minutes later, but pretty exciting though.
yeah. You use two deer fighting as your calling technique.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll tell you, as a hunter, you can't even come close to what it really sounds like. I mean, because
Oh,
it's really sounded they were up on a ridge, and there were times where it sounded like their bodies were rolling down the ridge together, or maybe one at it, but you could tell that they got knocked over and were rolling. I mean, it was pretty vicious.
yeah, it sounds like it. I've never really had the opportunity to watch two bucks go at it, but I did hear a doe bleating, wanting for a buck. I heard it come through, and I heard it come through, and I had a little grunt call, and I kind of went, I just kind of messed up the call, and the one that was bleeding didn't come running, but one of the other does come running, and I'm looking through my stand at her. She ran right
Yeah.
underneath my tree stand. She knew exactly where the sound come from. She wasn't looking up, but she come running right there and stops. I think she ended up probably hitting my pole rope. I have a little bitty rope that I
Oh,
hang
sure.
stuff on the pole on. And that's back in Nebraska when you only had two tags. And I'd already filled one archery tag, and I'm waiting for a buck for the other one because it wasn't December yet. In December, I'd go ahead and fill it. So I was looking for a buck, and I didn't see one, but I just watched them.
Yeah, I think, at least, I hunt here in the Midwest, and when I see if they're close enough with a doe with fawns, the amount of vocalization I hear between them it's really so faint. You really got to listen carefully, but those moms, they call their fawns quite frequently, and I've kind of noticed the fawns will listen and come into her, if they get too far away and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, that's interesting to do that. I had one time the doe and fawn come walking through, and the fawn beds down about 10-15 yards from my tree stand I'm in, and she just walks off, and so I'm just watching the fawn lay down there, and later on she comes back, and then her and the fawn go taking off. I figure, okay, well, that doe is safe because she got a little fawn with her, so I'm let him go, and I'm waiting for another doe to come by without fawns, or a buck come by, and it was just that one is all that came by that day, but it was fun watching.
and just last weekend, I was hunting in Iowa last weekend with the heat again. Actually, it wouldn't have been last weekend, 2 weekends ago now, for their opener. And I had a 3.5-year-old buck in front of me, and every doe that came into this field, he checked out, but he would get really frustrated with them. And what it sounded like to me, the closest thing I could say, he was barking at them. It was really short, really quick and loud, but I've never heard of a buck do that before in my life. But
Huh.
Yeah, it was really interesting. He was just getting frustrated with them, but it's obviously way too early.
Yeah. Yeah. Around here, middle of November is when the rut kicks off, because, you're just not too far away from me. I'm in the eastern part of Nebraska, and, the
Okay.
second week of November is when our rut really gets going. And of course, that's when our firearm season starts. But, that's another story. But yeah, I think Iowa's got some split seasons or something. And I don't hunt Iowa because, I'm over here in Nebraska and I just hunt Nebraska. But, our archery season starts September 1st and goes to December 31st. Except during the firearm season, you have to wear orange.
Okay.
It used to stop during that time. Now it just goes, you just got to wear orange. And then whole month of December is muzzleloader. And then you got your 9 days or 10 days in a rifle in November, another one in January. So it's easy. I heard, some states like, okay, you got early archery, late archery, and they're just all these different seasons. Like, how do you keep them straight when you go out there?
I will tell you what, I hunt, I'm from Wisconsin, so I hunt here, I don't vacation hunt here, but it is very confusing. Like last weekend was the youth hunt, which I think is great. But you can still bow hunt, but you got to make sure that you got your blaze orange on and all that, so you really got to pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of prefer not being out there during the firearm season because they're just, um, you know,
Yeah.
I'd rather, if I'm going to be out there, I'm going to have my rifle.
I didn't hunt this weekend, during the cold front, but I went out Monday and, I just, I hunt a lot of public. So it's like, I just let the kids do their thing and went out there on Monday after that was all over. So,
Yeah, all the different seasons. You just got to figure it out. If you live in that state, then you're kind of used to it. It's when I look at other states, it's like, how do you keep track of all that? But if I live there, then it's like, oh, okay, this is easy. It's just like go here and here and here.
well, I'll tell you, I live in Wisconsin and it's still not easy.
And
Even the way you have to pick your tags, like, I hunt a lot of public. Sometimes I get a chance to hunt some private, but like your doe tags, you have to decide, you get quite a few of them, but is it going to be shot on public or private? Things like that. That you have to decide that beforehand, like when you purchase your tag. So
oh, so you have a different tag for public and different tag for private property?
that would be just for the does, yes.
Oh, okay.
Actually, like this year, I knew I was going to hunt just all public, so I think there was 3 extra doe tags. I just did them all on the public. So
Yeah, our archery tags are good statewide. In
yeah,
any part of the
my
state.
buck tag would be,
Yeah,
that's or my either section, I should say. But yeah, that would be statewide the same thing for the most
yeah.
part. But
And then they have season choice tags that are good for certain areas, and they have lots of those. And those, you can take your antlerless deer on those, and it's kind of nice when you have your archery tag or your rifle tag, and then you have one of those because if a doe comes by, you can shoot it. Don't have to use your tag. You can shoot a buck on. You know.
sure,
Because
sure.
archeries are always either sex, so it doesn't really matter. So I kind of hate to shoot a doe on a tag. I can shoot a buck and then have a buck come by and I can't shoot it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it's I'm sure you got a whole lot more stories of some of your other hunts. Um,
Oh, I do.
yeah, I'd like to hear some of those stories. Those are kind of neat to hear some of your stories of some of your memorable hunt that you had on, and we already
I
talked about
mean,
a challenging and a one.
I suppose I always have to talk about my first buck, which was this over on this side, this huge 170 incher. Um, all of my buddies obviously have heard the story a million times, but I was 13 years old. I'd been hunting for, I guess that would have been my 3rd season. And that particular day, my dad and I got home from pheasant hunting, and it was November 6th. There was a button buck trying to mount a doe behind the house. We could hunt right behind the house.
Yeah.
And my dad's like, you should go out there. And we didn't have a stand like where this was going down at. They had like left the field by the time I got ready. And at that point, I would have shot either one of those deer and been happy with it. And because I mean, it would have been my first. And my dad takes me out there and he pushed me up into and I'm standing in the crotch of a bush, like 6 feet off the ground. And it wasn't long after he ends up showing up like on like the direction I couldn't shoot just the way I was standing in this bush.
Yeah.
But he's only like 4 yards away. I could hear him breathing because I'm barely off the ground. And, you know, he is chasing a doe. I couldn't see the doe, but he ends up running away, came out into the field that I can shoot into. And he starts coming my way and decides he turns and goes back in. I don't get a shot off then. And he came out and he did the same thing. So I assume he was following the scent of that doe that she had left, like
Right.
before we even got out there. And he came by and he was walking at 25 yards and shot him. And we ended up not finding him till the next day. But he ended up dying in a forest preserve. And this is where I think this is just really unique about a big animal like this. He was living within, I would say, 60 yards on both sides of him was a footpath where people rode their bikes and jogged every day. And we feel it's where he lived at. That was his bedroom. And just, you know, how close he was to people every day. But he was like, you can't hunt back there. So I guess, knew he was protected. But
Right.
I just feel like it was, you know, where he went to die. It was pretty unique. But, you know, as a 13-year-old, I mean, I was excited and it was awesome. But I don't think I really realized what I had done at that age, you know.
No, you don't. And then when you're that young and then you get a nice deer, it kind of makes it seem like it's too easy of a job. You know, this is going to be easy.
But you know, after that, you know, it was does and spikes and stuff like that for a while in my teenage years, and I just loved it, you know, just the whole hunting, you know. Like the next year I shot a doe and did it all by myself, went out there, you know, killed it, gutted it, tracked it, the whole kit and caboodle, and I was probably even more proud of that one, I would say, you know. But
Yeah, you know, when you can shoot a deer and you know, kill a deer with an arrow, you know, that's no matter what size it is, you know, that's an accomplishment because there's so many people that can't even hit them with a rifle. You
absolutely.
know, and here we are with a little bow and arrow that, you know, limited range and we're making good shots and killing them. And you know, then the guys that take up the traditional archery and they're killing them with those, you know, you got to have hats off to them because that takes a
Absolutely.
lot of work, a
Yeah,
lot of
you know, and
practice to
that
get
is
good at those.
something that it's on my bucket list. I mean, I want to shoot a deer with a recurve at some point in my life, and I took it up. You know, I don't have a recurve now, but man, I just think it would be really cool to be able to do that. And
Yeah, it would. I've got one. I just don't shoot it that much. I mostly I got it set up for bow fishing. You know, it's
okay,
what I
sure,
got mine set up for. Just because I can shoot a recurve without sights, but I can't shoot a compound without sights. Or just a mental block. It's a different weapon, so I shoot it differently.
oh,
You know,
absolutely,
part of it's the same. You know, my grip and my drawing is all the same, but you know, I'm using, you know, fingers as opposed to a release. You know, and you know, but the basics of, you know, like when I pick up a handgun, I hold it and I shoot it differently than I do a rifle, which is different than a shotgun, which would be different if I had a crossbow. You know,
oh, absolutely,
each one is different, you know. So I just have a different, you know, I started off with a recurve. And of course, when I started, you didn't have anything but recurves or longbows. That was it. There was no compounds. You know, I'd probably been shooting probably, you know, almost 10 years before the compounds really become available. I started in the 60s and they didn't, the late 60s, they had the first compounds, but they weren't really available much until the, you know, the early 70s is when they started coming out where they're, you know, you could actually see them and get them. And,
sure.
you know, so I had, probably a good 10 years shooting recurve.
I actually saw that episode of you, Roy, when you said you had the green fiberglass bow. That's I mean, I don't know if it was the exact same one, but I had a shorter version of the green one and then a little bit longer one, and those were the first two bows that I shot were
Yeah,
green recurves.
this one was the Ben Pearson 25-pound fiberglass recurve. I still have it. It's kind of got a green and yellow
Like a
fiberglass thing in
marble.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. It's I still have it downstairs. One of these days I might have to bring it and show it on the podcast or something. But
That would have been like my second one. My first one was just like a solid green, probably just like a 20-pounder, something like that.
yeah, and I had it set up to bow fish with it, and it you didn't have any break because there was a grip on it, so you could shoot off the shelf, but that was it. There's no place to bolt anything on.
Oh,
So
right.
I took a piece of aluminum and bent it around so I could bolt my fishing reel to it. And I can't even get my hand in it now because, of course, I was, 10 years old, so my hands were quite a bit smaller. So I can't even, but I'm not going to string it and shoot it anyway. So, it
Right.
doesn't really matter. But yeah, it's kind of fun talking about the old bows and stuff. And it's kind of interesting how things have, developed. And it took a long time for them to really get to a point, they were, the bows were just so going along and all, and then they start going, and next thing the quality and the features just kind of shot up, and
Oh,
now they
right.
kind of shot up, and it's going to take a big advancement for somebody to take another big jump in the technology in bows.
I felt like we kind of plateaued back in like around 2000 with the Matthews and the single cams and the parallel limbs. And then, these even more parallel limbs and binary cams came out, and it was like, holy cow, they could get better. But I was just talking about the other day, I kind of feel like they have kind of plateaued a little bit. I was even looking at the new bows. My bow is 8 years old, and they're really not all that different, I don't think.
No, it's the older bows I could press in my old bow press. The newer ones I can't put them in there. After about 2015, 16, they start
Right.
getting harder. You got to have a different kind of press, and then now some of them are beyond parallels. So the limbs actually curve back and curl back the other direction, so you can't put anything on them. You got to have a special press just to press those kind, and they're too short for me. I can't shoot that short of a bow. I just don't like them that short.
Yeah, I don't know. I think mine's 33 axle to axle, which I guess standard, that's mid length maybe.
Yeah, that's not too bad, but some of them I've seen are getting even shorter, under 30, and I said some of the short ones I've seen guys they draw back that string is such an angle. You've got 5 or 6 inches to get to the peep.
Yeah, see, I shoot a 30-inch draw, so like that sharp angle string, I can't get my nose on the string either. They get too short. I don't like them either. Like
Yeah,
30s and below. Like I said, I like to get my nose on the string, and I can't do it with those.
yeah, that's one of the anchor points I use. I have a kisser button in there, so it always lines up in the same spot on my mouth every time because I can feel it on there.
Mhm.
And then the peep, and then against my nose. And if I have the peep and the kisser button lined up and my nose is touched, now I know I'm not turning my head. So all that's lined up. It doesn't matter what I'm using for release.
Absolutely. Well, I know before we did this, you asked me one of the most toughest questions you might ask me is my most exciting hunt. And I've really been thinking about this and been wanting to tell you about this, Roy.
Okay. The floor
Well,
is
I'm
all
going to start
yours.
with it was not successful. So, me and my buddy Chris were hunting some public land in Illinois, and it was actually similar to last year, where that first week of November was really warm.
Yeah.
And this would have been, gosh, I don't know. It's like 6, 7 years ago now. And our plan was, we're going to get down at 10:30, meet at the truck group, maybe go hunt a different property or just figure something out because we weren't seeing anything. And at about 10:15, still hadn't seen a deer. And this is a place where we've been really successful in the past. I just get so frustrated. I'm like, I'm not waiting until 10:30. I'm just going to get down now. And I'm going to pull my lone wolf. So I get off the stand, drop the stand down to the ground, take the first stick off. I'm on like, so I'm 3 sticks up at this point, and a group of does behind me start blowing at me and they bust out of there. I'm like, I don't know if they were bedded there or if they had walked in, or whatever happened. Well, down below me in this ditch, there's a buck down there, and he comes out of the ditch, and he is an absolute giant. I actually have a ton of pictures of him. We kind of figure mid 180s, and he goes bounding into this wildflower field that I was sitting on the edge of, and every bound he grunts. And I'm like, this deer doesn't know what happened. And the direction he's headed, I kind of know where he's going to exit the field. So I'm like, I'm going to beat him there. And I'm going to shoot him. And I climb down the tree and I grab my bow and I take off. Well, I forgot to unhook it from the bow rope. So I get like 20 feet from the tree and bam, stops me, unhook. So then I unhook, the rope. And now, like, I'm just running down the edge of this field because they mowed a path around the edge of it. And the way the contour was, like, he couldn't see me. So I'm flying down the edge of this field, and I'm getting to the point where I'm going to, stop. And so I get an arrow out. I'm shooting the rage broadheads at that time. And one of the rage, it hits like my quiver edge and it deployed. And I'm like, I just throw it to the side, keep running, load a second arrow. And I'm like, this is where he should come out at. And I just stop, and here he comes, still grunting every bound. He gets to the trail, and I grunt, and I stop him. I settle my 30 on him, and I ease on the trigger. And then I really pull on the trigger. And then I pull on the trigger, and off he bounds. Ended up in all that madness. I was shooting at the time a Carter Quickie 1, which is like a hook style release. And it was actually open, and I was able to hook enough of like the open mechanism up on my loop to draw my bow back, but it was already open, and me pulling the trigger didn't do anything, and I never even let an arrow go after all that. But he ended up running past my buddy, and my buddy saw him. He's like, oh my God, that was a booner. I'm like, yeah, I know. I know.
But what you did get is a story you'll never forget.
Oh my God, no. I still look, I have pictures of that deer on my phone I look at. I'm just like, oh my God, that was so close.
All because you decided to get down early and not sit in your tree stand.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I would assume that they were coming, he was just following that group, I would assume. I don't think they were bedded, and like they could have possibly bedded and I didn't know it, but I'll never know.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah, that's quite an exciting story. That's a story to remember. And
it was.
I know our listeners going to enjoy it. That was really pretty like a cool story. And you're throwing your arrows on the ground because they're deployed, and you're hooking the release up, and release is already open, and
it was a hot mess, to say the least. And then, I'm down there on my knees after this all was said and done. I'm just like, oh my God, what just happened? You don't get them all, obviously. And I chased that deer for 4 more days, and I saw him actually every day. I saw him, but the last time I saw him, it was actually in the dark. I was walking out to my stand through that wildflower field, and it was really wet out. And I know from pictures I found later, he was breeding a doe in that field. He hit a scrape that I had a camera on like 4 times that night, and the doe was with him a lot of those times. Well, he went out and bedded on that trail that I walked in on, and I literally almost stepped on him in the dark. I walked out without a flashlight on, and it was so quiet with like that really like moisture that was out there. And when I bumped him that last time, the doe went one way, he went the other, and I never saw him again. I think at that point, he's like, I've had enough of this guy.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you can walk out without a flashlight, you run into stuff like that. And I
Yeah.
know one time I was going in a tree stand, and I had just small the little mini mag light, and I had it on, and I'm walking in, and there's quite a bit of moon, so you don't really need much of a light. I'm walking a trail, and then I hear get up and scurry off a little bit, so covered up the flashlight, turn it off, walk the rest of the way into my tree stand, climb my tree stand. Before shooting time, this deer comes, walks by my tree stand. Didn't run very far, just
Yeah.
because I wasn't walking in, like a human. I was I kind of take a little bit of steps and then stop. And I was listening to one guy one time, and he was telling the story, because he's a little older, and he don't walk too good, so he just kind of takes a few steps and stops. Don't see very well, so he stops and looks around, and what's a squirrel do? They kind of scurry a little bit and stop, scurry a little
Yep.
bit and stop. The only ones that make a constant thump 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 is us humans, and they learn that. So I've kind of remembered that, and I don't always kind of just march in where I'm going. Depending on where I'm at, if I know they don't ever come by during that time, I'm going to get to my tree standing as quick as I can. But
Sure.
other than that, it's like, if you don't know, that they could be coming through there, take a few steps and stop and listen. And
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That was hunting some public near here, where I was able to walk in partially without a flashlight, and got to the point where I got to go into the woods, and it was pretty dark. I couldn't really see very well. So I kicked my flashlight on, and all I heard was growling. I was like, I hoofed it out of there, but I kind of figured that had to have been a dog. I don't think a coyote would do that. I don't know if they really growl like that, but whatever it was, I wasn't about to like tangle with it.
yeah, when something starts growling, it's time to go a different direction. Yeah, that's kind of we always have a lot of cool stories, when we're out hunting in the forest. And I remember one time I was in a tree stand, and it was, it was like middle of the afternoon or something. It was daylight, and all of a sudden I heard this big hissing sound, like a big old hot air balloon was above me, and he hit the gas. It's like, I was like, what was that? And I was like, oh, hot air balloon. Okay.
Yeah, actually, where I hunt in Joe Davies County, it's near Galena, Illinois. I see hot air balloons. They don't fly right over me, but I see them actually quite a bit in the fall hunting out there. You'll see them out in the
Yeah.
distance. So it's cool. Yeah, you hear that flame though. You can hear that from miles away.
Yeah. Yeah. That was interesting, because they weren't there very far away. They was, up basically above me and up a little bit. And I think they're trying to not crash into trees or something. I don't know. But
And that's what I love about hunting so much. Though, I mean, the stuff that we get to see. I mean, actually, that was that same field I was talking about earlier, that wildflower field.
yeah.
Me, my brother, and my dad were all hunting in the same area, but like, probably half mile to a mile apart, depending. And a fireball went over while we were all walking out. I don't know if you're familiar with a fireball, but it's basically a really close shooting star, kind of
Right.
made, you know, and I mean, it was literally so bright when that happened that it was like daylight for like 3 or 4 seconds.
Huh.
And I thought the world was ending. I was like, oh God, here it is. But
Yeah.
it
At
went
least you're
out.
out hunting.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. At least you do have some kind of a weapon on you.
uh,
Not a long range one, but effective one. Yeah, I had another time I was up in a tree stand in that same area where the hot air balloon was, and getting towards dusk, and the rabbits are running around, birds are chirping, and then all of a sudden it got completely quiet, no sound at all. The birds quit chirping, the rabbits and squirrels, they were in their nest and bed, and it just got quiet. It's like, ooh, this is kind of eerie, all this sound, and all of a sudden nothing.
it, it's like, what do they know that you don't?
Yeah. It's bedtime.
uh,
Yeah,
that's why
there's
we do it though.
we all have kind of stories like that. I had one time I was in my tree stand and got my bow hanging up, and sun starts coming up, and I start to see the frost off forming on the trees and my bow and everything. Frost is all forming, and it's like it was cool. You can't really take a picture of it back then. Phones were terrible quality pictures, so it really didn't take much of a picture. And so I just watching it, and on the way home, there on the road there was a whole row of evergreen trees on the north side of the road, and they were all frosted over on the way home. Like, that was cool.
Oh, definitely.
Now there's all houses there.
Yeah. Or I shot my big one when I was 13. There's a subdivision there now.
Yeah, I used to be able half hour. I used to be able to leave my house and be at my tree stand, and now it's probably an hour drive.
Yeah, I mean, I live right here in the city of Milwaukee, and I feel pretty fortunate. My main hunting area, it's 40-minute drive, so not too bad.
Now where I'm at, I got the one hunting line is a mile away, and the other one's I think 2 miles away.
Oh, nice, nice.
So I can hop on the four-wheeler and go.
Yeah, one
Don't even
day I'm
need a car.
hoping, just leave my bow hanging in the garage and just walk out the back door one day, but hopefully that'll happen.
Yeah, that'd be nice to have the forest right behind your house and just walk out and to your tree stands. And
Definitely.
yeah, it's
One of the other things I enjoy just about being out there is just watching the animals be them goofy selves when they don't realize they're being watched.
oh yeah, they can do whatever they
Um,
want to do. And
I just wanted to tell you about that buck that made that barking sound. He did something else that I've never seen a deer do. Um, I had a couple does come in right underneath me, and they're really like 2-3 yards from my tree. So he comes up, he's at about 22 yards, and he checked, like I said, every doe that came in the field. And these does, you could tell they just don't want any of his business. He
yeah,
ducked. It was, and then I gotta tell you, in Iowa, their public land, it is phenomenal. I'm actually sitting on a brassica field that's about 2.5 acres, about a mile and a half back. And these brassicas, they're about 1.5 feet tall. He ducks his head down into the brassicas to hide his head and his face. And he's not eating because he's not pointed that way. And he waits 30 seconds and he pops his head up and he does that bark at him. And then he just starts chasing them. It's like he's playing peekaboo with them in the food plot. I've
that,
never seen a
that-
deer hide his head before. I don't know what that was about.
yeah. I guess I never figure if he can't see, then they can't see him. He don't understand that his body's still there.
Uh,
That is different. I never heard of a buck doing that and sit there and basically just barking.
Yeah, that was weird too. I mean, I've heard you heard the Drury brothers talk about that buck growl. I've heard things like that, and I've heard snort wheezes before, but it was just so short and it was loud. I mean, that's the closest thing I could come to is a bark.
That would have been interesting to have on video of him doing that.
Yeah, I got my video out after all that was said and done. I didn't get it on there. I got him on there, but not after he did. I was hoping he would do that noise again, and he
Yeah,
never did it again.
yeah. One of those weird things that you think about. It's like, oh man, I should have videoed it, and
Yeah.
then like, oh, okay, well, I got it ingrained in my mind. I'll have to remember it that way.
It was still a really, really cool encounter though. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, this is my first year hunting Iowa. And I was when I went out to my tree stand, it was 80. I'm not expecting to see anything. The first night I saw 13 deer. And that
Oh
buck
yeah,
was one of them, a nice 3.5-year-old, probably 130-inch 10-pointer, really nice deer.
what part of Iowa was it in?
I'm hunting zone 9. So zone 9 is the northeastern 4 counties, Alameda, Winneshack, Clayton, and there's another one, but yeah, the 4 northeastern counties is where I'm at.
Well, it's a little closer to you that way too.
Yeah, that was honestly kind of the plan. Um, you know, if I get lucky and because I already have my Airbnb rented for 2 weeks. And I think that's like, cause I'm off for like 3 weeks this fall, but anyway, if I shoot one in Iowa, I'll be able, I mean, to hunt. There's a lot of public on the Wisconsin side that's only like 25 minutes from where I'm staying. So I'll just stay out there
Oh,
and then just keep hunting Wisconsin.
yeah,
It'll be all brand
that's
new land for me, but I love doing that. Just throwing my lone wolf on my back and going out and just hunting sign and, going off of that. It's fun for me.
yeah, it's scouting new areas. You never know, and sometimes the first time you hunt an area is your most successful.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I felt about last year with that buck I killed. I mean, the area I was familiar with, but where I like hunted that particular night, I hadn't hunted within 500 yards of there or more. Like it just was an area that I just never, but the sign told me to be there and obviously worked.
Yeah, yeah. As we get a little more experience, we kind of learn to read the signs a little bit better. And I know when I started out, just seeing a footprint was a great sign.
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of that when I was younger because I just wanted to do it all my own. And I had a lot of sits with no deer at all just because I thought it looked good, like they should be there, things like that. Definitely learn.
Yeah, learn a lot when you go out, by yourself. You learn a lot, but it takes a long time. And nice thing about if you have somebody that's done it is they can shorten that learning curve a little bit.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
That's always nice when you can shorten that curve. And yeah, and that's kind of what we do here in the Facebook group, Archery Talk 101 Facebook group is, if you have questions on something, ask it. There's somebody in there that has probably experienced it, and they're
Oh,
willing to
yeah.
help you. And that's just way I've got the group set up. We're here just provide information, and that's why I go live in the Facebook group, so they get it right away, so you don't have to wait. Depends on how many you might have to wait for this to come out on the podcast for a week or week and a half or 2 weeks, depending on what the schedule is ahead of you. But the group gets it now. So
Yeah,
that's kind of advantage to being in there.
I get it. It was the first archery shop I worked for, and that's where I still send people to this day. And I just like it didn't matter your skill level, what you wanted to do with archery. We treated everyone the same and just wanted people to get into it. And I don't know, I think it's just a great mentality to have. I think it's a great sport. Like I was telling my buddy today, I found, through giving lessons with Boy Scouts and stuff, that kids that necessarily weren't really good athletes, they could figure out archery and be really good at it. And I
Right.
saw that, it's cool. Great sport.
You don't have to be athletic or really coordinated, because you can learn everything you need to know. You just got to have the desire to shoot, and you're going to take it to whatever level you want to take it to. And if you want to get better, then there's ways to get better. And sometimes you have to get a coach to help you out. And all athletes have coaches. Not just athletes, but a lot of your high performing people, whether it be an entrepreneur or business, they all have coaches or mentors that's helping them. Somebody's been there to help and guide them. And that's don't be afraid to ask.
Oh,
There's
absolutely. I mean, I was at a point where, I was a really good shot, competing nationally. And I'm sure you probably had it, Roy, but a case of target panic came on me.
yeah.
Oh, it was horrible. And I had a guy coach me through it and got me past it, but ooh, that could be miserable. But
Yeah, I haven't done that since I started shooting back tension,
okay.
because
Yeah, I
target panic
never.
is basically shoot, and then you shoot, and then pin moves, you say don't shoot, and that's what it is. It's your body reacting to your pin moving off your target. When you're trying to force it to fire. If you're not trying to force it to fire, you don't know when it's going to go off. So how are you going to have target panic if you don't know when it's going to go off? Just keep aiming. I always like to tell people when I find out they're an archer, it's like if they're using a wrist strap, it's like, okay, I'll give you first lesson free. Quit pulling the trigger. And they say, huh? Well, how you going to fire it? Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
you wrap your finger around it and you try and pull the string off the bow.
Yeah.
I was taught just keep pulling on that string and eventually, keep aiming and it'll go off.
Yeah. You're using your back muscles to do it. And it's just, there's just so many things I've talked about many times in the podcast, but it's nice when you see somebody that is struggling, all of a sudden it just clicks because you give them that one little tip. The last podcast I talked to a guy and I just mentioned something, he thought about it and improved his shooting. The last podcast, something they basically what I'd said was you have two jobs in archery: store energy and aim. That's all you got to do. Which the storing energy is draw and aim.
Mhm.
That's all you got to do. Everything else should not be a thought. Because once you've drawn back, you store the energy. Once you start aiming, you got to keep aiming. Because as soon as you think about pulling a trigger, you stop aiming. So what are you going to hit? Wherever the pin was at. Because you're not aiming anymore. That's a concept that's for some people it's hard to get through. I'll tell them, okay, look at a spot, put your hand up like you got it up here, put your finger out, so it's pointing out like a lot of people do, and then they go slamming on the trigger. It's like, okay, concentrate on the spot. Do not think about anything but that spot. Now make your finger move without thinking about it. That's what we'll do. It's like, yeah, I can do it. I'm done teaching. As soon as you say that, it's like, no, I can't teach you. Because right there, you're lying to yourself, and I can't help you. And then a lot of us, you can't do it because you have to think about the finger. And it's okay. Now you're thinking about the finger. What'd you stop doing? You stopped aiming. So what are you going to hit? You don't know because you're not aiming anymore. You're thinking about pulling the trigger. And that's where target panic comes in. Is you'll see when I first had it explained to me, and then I've seen it too. Is you watch the pin go across the target because you're watching the pin, not the target. You're watching the pin, it hits the target, and you start squeezing the trigger, and moves off the pin. Your mind says, "Don't shoot." That's target panic. So if you're looking at the target, letting the pin float over your target and not pulling the trigger, you're going to hit.
It's amazing how that works.
Yeah, I've taken a lot of new shooters and got them up there. As okay, got back now. Keep your finger off the trigger. I'm going to pull the trigger. You're not going to pull the trigger. Our only job is to aim, and I'll go pull that trigger. And 90% of the time, they hit the target they're aiming at. And as soon as I let them pull the trigger, they're off.
Yeah.
I went through all that.
Fred worked with me on when I had that target panic. That was the first thing he did with me, is just like, just aim. And I didn't even know he was going to do it. And he reached in and hit my trigger for me and drilled it.
Yeah.
See?
You can do it. You can do it. No problem. You can do it. Good. See if I can see anybody in the group has got anything to say, but Facebook and their infinite thing here is keep telling me I'm sending too many messages to my friends. So no comments yet. Sometimes I have comments and I like to pass them on, and sometimes I have people that know you and they come in and say hi and whatnot. But I always like to check them once in a while and make sure they're not, commenting on it. And yeah, we just have a lot of fun talking about archery and all of our stories. And I like to hear yours. I try not to tell too many of mine because I tell kind of the same ones over and over.
Yeah, like I said just earlier today, I got going about archery with that guy that found the bow in his basement, and I went on, and I'm sure he's just like, "All right, already." I love talking about it.
Yeah. So you do a lot of 3D shoots. What's kind of you did talk about that one shoot you've been going to all the time. What other shoots do you like going to?
I mean, I guess that would always be my number one. Yeah, there's so many like clubs around here. I don't know if I have like, you know, another particular one. I think about the ASAs I used to shoot and how much fun that was. But that was a lot of money wrapped in that and traveling and all that. Um, I mean, honestly, I think about it, and really for me is being at deer camp with my buddies and like shooting at deer camp, would probably be like that's really my favorite. I mean, I shoot every day during the season. It's just the thing, probably the most important time to practice. Every time I go out, I shoot.
Yeah, that's kind of key is you got to keep your skills up and sometimes it's kind of hard to do that when you're working full time and have other things going on and it's sometimes can be difficult to put the time in. And if you don't have the time, what would you suggest somebody that don't have a lot of time to shoot every day?
And I don't know. I guess, for some people, like, I don't know about yourself. I can't shoot in my yard. I mean, I'm in the city of Milwaukee, so that makes it difficult. I mean, if you could have a target in your yard, though, I mean, and the way I look at it, I mean, it's nice to shoot a lot of arrows, but let's be realistic here, for hunting, you're going to get to shoot one. And,
Right.
so if it's just one arrow a day, just go out there and just make the one count, you know. Saw a video yesterday. I think calls himself like the Bowman. He's a hunter like out west. He was showing a video. He likes to put his target on the toolbox on the back of his truck in front of his rear window. He felt that the pressure of missing that target and shooting through his truck was about as close as he could get to the similarities of shooting at a real animal.
Oh, well, that is true. You don't want to put an arrow through your truck.
I thought that was pretty funny. I'm like, yeah, that would be a lot of stress.
Yeah. Hey, an expensive a miss. If you miss it, it's expensive because not only you probably going to wreck your arrow, but you're going to wreck your window and maybe your windshield, and it may go through both of them.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess with that though, yeah, make it like, even if it's just a handful of arrows, it's really making just those few that you do shoot count. Like I said, in the woods, it's really, you're only going to get the one shot, most likely. So you can kind of practice that way too.
Yeah, I know some go to shoots, and they say, well, you need, take any worm shots. No. Well, why not? I don't get a worm shot at a deer.
No.
My first one counts. You
It's
start
gotta
off your
count.
3D. The first target is my first arrow. Yeah, it may take a shot or two just to make sure everything is working, but pretty much, you drop back and it works. If your practice shot it's got a problem, well, you're not going to shoot the rest of them anyway. So yeah, make sure your bow's in good shape before you leave.
One shoot though that I've never done, and I really should be ashamed of myself for not, because it's not far from here, but that Reinhardt 100, that's just in Beloit, which is that's for me an hour away maybe. But that sounds like a cool one. I mean, Reinhardt's got some really cool targets, that's for sure.
Yeah,
So.
they do. And a lot better than when I first started doing 3D shoots. There was pretty much your deer, your bear, your pigs, coyotes, a turkey. That's basically what you had. And then now they come in, like you're saying, they got all kinds of stuff. They got dinosaurs, they got Bigfoot, they've got, all kinds of different gators,
Huge moose that you got to use a ladder to get your arrow out of.
Yeah, they have a ladder sitting by it. You got to climb up to get them out. They are a tall animal, that's for sure.
I've heard they're
Good
delicious too.
Oh, they are. I went up moose hunting in Canada and got one, and
Oh, cool.
I think it's probably the best meat you can have.
That's what I've heard. I've never had it. I would love to. I mean, I guess the best wild game I've had so far is elk, which was delicious. It wasn't mine, but no, that was good.
Yeah, I ended up with, well, the meat and the bones was like 530 pounds.
Holy cow.
What I had. Of course, I had bones in it, but still, that's a good 400 pounds of meat, and it lasted for quite a while because that's a lot of meat.
Yeah, that's a few deer.
Yeah, and quite a few deer.
Yeah.
And deer is good, but the moose was just on another level. And
Huh.
and, I cut it all myself, so I know exactly how it was processed.
Oh, cool.
And, I'd normally do all my deer just because I want to make sure I get my deer back. I can cut it the way me and my family wants to eat it. I can, why I do a whole bunch of roasts if you don't do roast, or why take the back, instead of making the round steaks, if we don't eat them that way, we eat them as roast. I can cut them up however I want. And when
Sure.
I grind the meat, I can make sure that I don't have any fat in it, and most of the membrane's gone. Because the membrane really doesn't do you much good, and the fat is nasty to have on your
Right.
meat.
Absolutely.
So I get all that, and the first grinder I had was a real old, hand crank one, and the membrane would not go through it. It would not cut the membrane. So you're going along, and then you pull it off, take all the membrane off, stick it back on, and go through. So there's no membrane at all in the meat, to start off with, and then I got a little bit bigger grinder, and then it would grind up some of that. It's the bottom, not quite so much, and then now we got one of those electric ones, and then whatever you put in, it's going to grind up. So you got to make sure
Right.
you get it clean.
Yeah, our family, we've had this old school grinder since I was a little kid, and I think it grind pretty much anything, but we try and get it pretty cleaned up before we throw it through there.
Yeah, that makes it smell better and taste better.
Oh
You
yeah,
know, like I've had some where you got the ground from the butcher, so I have it, and when they're cooking it, it's like, man, that stinks because they got fat in it, because they don't trim it as close as what I do when I'm doing mine. And
sure.
why put it in? Because it doesn't help the taste. It only makes it worse, because it smells bad and tastes bad when you're cooking it, eating it. So take it off.
Actually, I had venison chili right before we did this.
Oh, oh, should have got me some. I would love to have some venison chili.
Oh, that's one of my. I was gonna say it's my favorite, but a lot of things are my favorite. We just started doing Mississippi pot roast with our venison roast. Oh, that is so good. Have you ever had that?
Uh-uh.
Oh, you got to
How's
look
that
it up. If
fixed?
you like roast, it's I mean you do it similar to a pot roast, but it's more like there's pepperoncinis in there. Um, it's a little bit more spicy, and it's not going to have the side of vegetables like carrots and potatoes like a pot roast,
Right.
but it is delicious. That and some mashed and your business.
Sounds good.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. I know one time I had a deer and fired up the grill, and I put the tenderloins on there, and I'm waiting for it to get done cooking. And so, they always taper down. It's like, put the fork in one end, cut off a piece, ate it, cut the four ends off, and then wait for the rest to get a little bit ready and cut them off. I ate them right off the grill.
Oh, that's awesome.
I didn't cook the whole thing. I was just eating it as it was cooking, because they taper down. And then once you get there, it's like, okay, it's all good. Cut it up, eat it.
Uh,
Yeah. No salt, no nothing, just straight off the grill.
that's pretty much all you need.
Yeah. A little salt sometimes helps, but pretty much cook them like that. And then it was fresh too. It was frozen, taken back out or anything. It was
Sure.
fresh. And that's kind of my treat for the day.
Yeah, sometimes I have to get my deer processed. Like last year, I was 400 miles from home with those warm temps. I brought it in, had a
Oh,
process down south. Seemed
yeah.
like they did a really nice job, but sometimes I don't get to do my own.
Yeah, when you're that far away and it's that warm, what are you gonna do? You can't cut it up quick enough.
No,
And you don't have any place to refrigerate it if you're out someplace like time. So best to take them, and they get them and it's froze, and put them in a cooler, take them home, and now you get meat that hasn't spoiled on you. And
absolutely.
yeah, it's kind of interesting. The first time processing a deer, my cousin had shot one and offered him my brother and I, half the deer if we'd cut it up for him. And so we don't know what we're doing. It's before internet. So
Oh, sure.
so we got somebody who figured it out, and just cut it up and wrapped it up and give him his half, and we kept our half and split it. And so that was our first attempt at doing it, and we've since gotten a whole lot better at it.
Yeah, I mean, my dad, he was the one that, got me out in the woods and all that. And I mean, I remember being just a little kid, helping him. And so I guess it was just something that's since I was a little kid I've been doing. And he just, he taught me. And I wouldn't say we're experts by any means, but we did a pretty good job.
Yeah, one of the things that we found out, man, Mike, we were brought the deer back and it was kind of all dirty and yucky and stuff. So we took the hose and hosed it off. And then we went to clean it. That hide just come off so nice and easy. Like, oh, well, this worked out pretty good. So every time we come back, we'd hang it up, we'd hose it all down, and the hide just kind of come right off. It almost like it separates and falls off.
I've never heard this trick before.
Oh yeah. Try it sometime when you get ready to skin them. Hose them down, just soak them down, and then they just seem to it soaks in between the meat and the hide, and it kind of separates that membrane. It makes it just really soft. It just
Huh.
pulls off real nice.
Yeah, we use like a rope and a golf ball and get it started around the neck. And I don't know if you ever done that where you put the golf ball through the hide, get
Yeah,
your knot,
yeah.
and we just do that and it works pretty good. But
By
if it makes
hosing
it
it down,
easier,
you won't need it. By hosing it
yeah,
down, it'll come off even easier, even
all
without the
right.
golf ball.
I'll have
You'll
to
have to
try
try
that.
that. Let me
I
know in the
will.
next one how it worked out for you. But that was something that we just started doing. It just by accident we discovered it,
Huh.
and and then I've talked to other people. It's like, oh yeah, we did it all the time. It's like, why didn't you tell me before we accidentally
I
discovered
can't
it?
believe all these years I've never heard that before, but it did now.
Yeah, soak it down, and that also gets some of the dirt off of it and any loose hair you might have, and before you start,
Sure.
cleaning it, and if there's any bugs or anything on there, you probably get those off, and just makes the hide a lot cleaner, and especially if you plan on keeping the hide, not throwing it out. I always like to keep all mine, and then of course, going through divorce, they all just disappeared, but yeah, but yeah, it's I figure why throw the hide away? There's so much you can do with it. And I'd stretch it out and dry it and not really tan it, but it's all dried out, and I salt it and dry it out. And I've cut the little pieces off of it and use that to stick some scent on and hang that up. And
Yeah, we always trade ours in. There's places by us that you can trade them in for, because they'll make gloves and mittens out of them. And
right.
for every hide that you trade in, you get a pair of gloves.
Oh, that's not bad. I can
Yeah,
do anything with it. Yeah.
I mean, definitely better than throwing it out.
Oh yeah. Why throw it out if you don't do anything with it? You might as well give it to somebody that will do something with it.
Mhm.
And if you can get a pair of gloves for each hide you take in, you got something for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be. I don't know if anybody around here does anything like that, but out there, there's a few more people out there than there is here.
Yeah, I think I don't know what tannery. I know there's a pretty big tannery up in central Wisconsin. I kind of wonder if they're the ones that come around and pick them all up from all the different places because there are like multiple different places I know of that will you can do this at.
Yeah, they might do that to get them in a tandem, and they can sell the hides. And
I think it's what they probably make all those gloves out of, I guess. But
yeah, well, I'd taken a deer hide. I expect deer gloves, deer hide
yeah,
gloves.
right.
Yeah, that's I wouldn't want to trade just regular leather gloves. You could go get them anywhere. I want one made out of deer hide.
The mittens are really awesome because they're insulated, so they're really nice for ice fishing.
Yeah, nice insulated pair of gloves, especially good regular leather on there. That helps keep the wind from going through, and a little bit of insulation. They stay pretty warm that way.
All right.
So I bet you do a lot of ice fishing while you're up there too, up there in Wisconsin and Minnesota area. And
Not so much anymore. I've gotten
uh,
kind of soft in my old age.
I haven't
I
been
do
on ice.
some, but
I haven't
I
been on ice fishing in a long time.
yeah, it's honestly it's not really my jam anymore. I because honestly, like I'll be gone most of November this year, and I kind of save those kind of few winter months to get projects done around the house and keep everyone happy around here. And
Yeah. Well, here in Nebraska recently, they just haven't had good enough ice for me to want to get out on the ice. I've seen
I
people
don't
out there with just a couple inch of ice and they're out on the ice, fishing. It's like, no, I'm not getting out on that thin of ice. I'm not going through the ice.
know. I'd rather not. I do so much open water fishing too. I like fishing in flip flops and a t-shirt.
Yeah. I like to go out and when I'm going on catfishing, so I can just kind of sit there and throw the rod out and sit back and then wait.
No doubt.
Yeah, I got friends that, one buddy of mine, he used to do a lot of bass fishing, and I'd go out with him, and he'd be catching all the bass. So we go catfishing, I'd catch all the catfish because he tried to fish catfish like bass. And no, you got to throw your hook where you're either going to get a snag or a fish.
Really slow.
That's pretty much what you're doing. You're throwing it in there, and then you just let him sit there. And there's times when he went out fishing, and I didn't put my hook in the water because I didn't want to get disturbed. I wanted to just sit back and relax, enjoy the afternoon. So I just didn't have my hook in my rod. He's out there fishing, and maybe that's why archery is so nice, because you do get to sit there and relax and let things go by and just enjoy being out there.
I'll tell you, as I've gotten older, I've found I enjoy that time more and more as I get older, for sure. Just to get out of the rat race of the work and all that. I love it.
Yeah, it's nice when you can get up there, because you get to just be quiet and just have your thoughts and just listen for everything going on. And you get the trees, a little bit of wind blowing and leaves are falling, and it's like, is that noise? Oh, just a leaf falling. When you're in there listening, I've been out there and listening, all of a sudden I was like, okay, what's that noise? Oh, I just hear my blood flowing through me. You're listening so much, you hear your own heart rate. Like, okay, this is actually probably kind of cool.
Yeah, like I know where I go down south in Illinois, it is so desolate down there that you don't even hear a car on the road or an airplane or anything. It's great.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we're the two places I have to hunt. It's not too far away. The one's not too far away from the highway, probably about 500 yards from the highway, and the other one's just a gravel road, but not quite as busy. But you get semis going down not too far, away from me, and you can see them and hear them, but don't bother the deer.
No, not at all.
No, I don't
But
bother
I
them at
was out
all.
on Monday. They were taking corn down behind me. They were taking corn down across the street. There was a guy cutting bushes down next to his barn. I mean, this is pretty remote too, but it was so loud on Monday, you couldn't hear anything.
Had to just wait to see if you could see them coming in.
Um, I've seen it a lot of times though, when they're taking that corn down. I mean, they'll wait until there's only a couple rows left before they'll finally skate out of there. And they never, there wasn't any like this time, but I've seen it before though. And they got down to probably like 10 rows and left at 10 rows. So who knows if any held up in there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing, how they get adapted to being around people. I know one place I was hunting was old railroad tracks. The tracks were gone. It was just a path. And the one lady up there used to walk it all the time. So she was walking it all the time. And, so the deer around there used to somebody walking down the trail. So it doesn't really spook them. I'm walking out and I look over to my right, and here's a deer bedded down about 10 yards from the trail, just looking at me. I looked over at it. I said, well, I ain't getting you today. I just kept walking, because if I'd have stopped, it'd been gone.
Oh yeah.
And
100%.
the only way I could have done it was walk down a long ways and then just snuck back up. And but where it was facing, it would have been, had been looking at me. So I couldn't really get to it. And I've snuck up on them, on a trail, but the cover was so low I couldn't shoot him unless I had a crossbow. But I was probably 10 yards away from it, just basically crawling up to it, and it didn't know I was there. So, but then I was kind of stuck. I couldn't I couldn't get up and even get on my knees to shoot because the cover only went up then about to my waist. I was on my knees. So, about a foot tall cover and I was like, but it was cool getting that close to him, just sneaking up and took my boots off, so I had just my socks on, and that's kind of nice. It wasn't wintertime, so it wasn't full of snow. So, well, it was wintertime, but I mean, it wasn't snow covered.
And that's like that big one I shot when I was younger, where, like I said, where he died at. I mean, he had dog walkers within 50, 60 yards of him every day, and that's where he lived.
Yeah. He didn't care because nobody was bothering him. And
This property I'm hunting in Iowa, there's, it's big, but there's a trail that connects all these fields that are back there, for the combines and tractors and all that.
yeah,
And I had a camera on one just to kind of see the type of traffic that it got. And I wouldn't say every day, but there was DNR traffic with their trucks. They'd go back there. There was like one lady, she'd walk her Rottweiler back there a lot. And at first I'm like, oh man, this place gets like a lot of traffic. But then I'm like kind of thinking about what we're talking about. Those deer hear that every day, as long as you don't come up, once you get off the trail and stop and do stuff like that, I think that's when those deer get, skittish, but they get used to those people walking and the trucks going through there and all that.
yeah. I know one time we was hunting across some tracks. The owner owned both sides of the tracks, and we had permission to hunt across the tracks. So I parked my truck by the little pond he's got there, and I'm sitting in my tree stand. I can see my truck. A deer walks about 5 yards from behind my truck. I could have just sat in the back of my truck and shot. They say, well, you can't park by where you're in. No, the farmers are in the fields all the time. It's like no big deal. Just the truck sitting there. They don't care. Now, if you're in an area where there's no people ever around, that might be a different story. But a place like you're hunting, I'm hunting, there's a lot of traffic in there, farming operations going on and everything else. And so that they kind of get used to it, and they don't care.
No. Yeah, there was some private that I can still hunt there. I don't hunt it very often, but the farmer left his hay baler out there in the field one day. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Finally, a place to hide out there where they all go eat. And I didn't sit in the tractor, but I kind of just hid behind it. And I had deer in shooting range multiple times that night, and they had no idea.
Yeah.
They didn't even care.
Yeah, they don't care. It's just one of those things that, when around most places that we're hunting, there's going to be some traffic, unless you get back a long ways. And some people go in and walk in 2-3 miles because they're back there where nobody goes back there, because most people don't spend that hour and a half to walk back to their tree stand, to hunt, and another hour and a half back. And if they get a deer, then, they're going to be, this is an all day affair.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm too old to walk that far to go to hunt. I'm going to take my 4-wheeler as close as I can now.
Oh man, I wish. I got a long walk. I'm thinking about using a mountain bike though for this hunt in Iowa, because there's that trail, and like the spots I want to hunt, there's about 1.5 miles each way, and a bike would just be easier.
Yeah, I got a friend of mine. He got one of those electric bicycles, and they're real quiet, because it's an electric motor. So there's no thing on there, and he says they work really well. Those are kind of expensive, but
yeah, I don't. I know you can use them out there. I looked into it. I'm not that familiar with the electric bikes, but in the laws it said 750 watts or less. And I talked to a couple of guys that know a little bit. They said that's a pretty powerful bike, but I don't even know how much something like that would even run. As a figuring a mountain bike would be cheap, and I could do that.
Get the mountain bike with the big old fat tires on it, and those pretty good. Those electric ones, I forget what they're running. They're $2,000-3,000 for them anyway.
I know I
that's
have a
quite a
friend
bit.
selling one, but I know his was really high end. But yeah, he's asking 3,500 for his, but that's way more than I want to spend.
Yeah, yeah, for for a motorized bicycle. I'm gonna spend that. I'm gonna get a real motorcycle,
Right?
but I'm not gonna take it back there hunting though. Yeah, I'm fortunate where I'm close enough. I can go out or hop on my four-wheeler, and wintertime I just got to make sure I put a full helmet on so I don't have the cold air blowing in my eyes and make my eyes water. And then you're going down, it's like you basically can't see anything, and cold air makes my eyes water real quick when it's blowing in
Oh
them.
yeah, no doubt.
Even sitting in tree stands, that wind blowing in your eyes can make them start watering, and then you're trying to wipe wipe the tears out of your eyes because they're just watering so much, and now then it's freezing, and
Yeah, this is only my second season of hunting with glasses, and I don't know. I take them off like the last hour and a half. 'Cause I can shoot without them. It's really more up close, but I don't know how much protection that's going to give me against the wind or anything. But I'm not a fan of wearing these out in the woods.
yeah, I had contacts for a while, and that was pretty nice, except then the contacts themselves would get cold with the wind blowing on them, and
Oh
because
man,
they're just, yeah. So it worked. It was still better because then I didn't have to worry about glasses fogging up, and you got your mask on and you breathe and your glasses fog up, and then you're kind of going like this to unfog your glasses, and you breathe again and you're doing this again, and
and you know when that's going to happen when you got the buck of a lifetime underneath you and you're
yeah,
hyperventilating.
yeah. So I was trying to get it so that I'm not blowing, keep my nose out, so then I blow outside. If I blow inside the mask, then it comes up and blows up right up into your eyes because they don't seal around your face like they should. And so I kind of keep my nose out so that as I breathe, it's not breathing up into the back of my glasses, and all the little tricks you learn once in a while.
Yeah, I've been using that Sitka gear for a couple years now, and their hoodie, that mask, it sits like just really perfect, like right where it should.
Yeah, and if your nose is sticking out and shiny, well, if that spooks the deer, you're probably already in trouble.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to be anyway.
Yeah, like I don't have camo arrows, there for everything. Everybody had camo arrows and everything
Uh,
else, and it's like, and I says, well, if the deer can tell you don't have camo arrows, you're already in trouble. So what difference does it make? And I take my quiver off and hang it in my tree. I've
right,
got
me too.
another receiver with a screw-in thing that you can put another receiver on it. So I've got extra of
Absolutely.
those. So I screwed in a tree and I unlock it from my bow, stick it on there and lock it back on it. So it's locked onto the tree, and I just grab it onto there, and another arrow, because I don't practice with it on. So I don't like to hunt with it on. The only time it's on is when I'm walking into the tree stand and walking
Yeah,
out.
I don't shoot with mine either. I like the weight on there or the noise.
Yeah. Well, and they do shoot differently.
Go
That's the one thing that you got to remember. It's like how you practice with it is how it's got to be set up. So if you're going to shoot with a quiver on, you need to have a quiver on minus one arrow, because that is the weight you're going to be shooting your first
Mhm.
arrow. And now as you go through arrows, shooting at deer and missing, that's a different story there. That's
Uh,
why I carry 6 broadheads with me. Not that I'm going to shoot 6 deer, but it gives me 6 times to hit one.
yeah, I don't even have a camo bow anymore. My bow is all black, red accents on it. I haven't had a camo bow in a while.
Yeah, as long as it's not shiny
Yeah.
to reflect light, it doesn't matter. So some of the target bows have a real shiny paint job on them, and
Oh yeah.
those reflect the sun, and that can be a problem there because I'll see a little reflection coming off the bow. But if it's not a shiny reflective surface, you know
I I swear, and I truly feel this. Like if they're, you just do not look them in the eyeballs.
yeah, make
It's
that
just,
connection, eye to eye
I swear they
connection.
know it. I just like I look kind of at them, but not at their eyes. I think they can sense it, but
Well, they do have a pretty good sense of fear,
Oh, yeah. They're only worried about the next 2 minutes of their life all the time. So
Yeah. It's like you kind of describe it as a paranoid schizophrenic. They're jittery and looking at everything, and they're going around and around, and it's like, okay, who's trying to eat me next? Who's trying to eat me next? Then other times I just kind of relax. Like, wow, I don't care. I just mosey around.
I like seeing them when they're like that, but not all the time.
Yeah. Well, what would you like to tell our audience that, something that, impart some of your wisdom to them?
Oh boy.
I know you got a lot of wisdom. Let's just pass something on.
I mean, I guess, like my biggest thing lately, with the public land I've been hunting, I mean, it can be a little frustrating, but I mean, gosh, I've just got to remember to keep your head down, and that land is there for all of us to use, and be friendly with your other hunters, or if they're raccoon guys or trappers or whatever it is. And I think just learning to enjoy that, not letting other people get to you, is just some good advice that I could for those public land hunters out there. And one of the biggest bucks I ever had an opportunity at came in 10 minutes after a hunter walked under my tree, and that deer had no idea. So
Yeah.
gotta kind of remember that, it's like it's for all of us. And I think just having a good mentality about it, and bring good karma. And just I talked to a trapper out in Iowa. He's like, "You're gonna hate me during the rut. I'm gonna be out here trapping." I'm like, "Go for it. I hope you get them all." Like, what do I care? Have fun.
Well, and I had a trapper on here, and they see some stuff that we don't see because they're out there at different times. And sometimes they can, you talk to the trapper, and they're going to tell you, I've been seeing deer down here. Every time I go run my traps, deer are down here.
And
And it's like, go down there.
absolutely. And like this trapper that I ran into, I mean, I'm not a trapper, but the way I understand it, they are so like keyed in on like not wanting to leave scent, like and
Right.
I think they're pretty cautious people too. So I can't imagine them really affecting much of anything. They bump a deer one time, I don't know, so what?
Well, and just after that person walked through, they could have kicked the deer up. A lot of times they'll run and kind of circle back around.
Oh, sure.
So it could have bumped it up and circled back around and brought it to you.
Yeah, it's hard to say. They were on the same path and everything. Like, it didn't even seem like that buck had any idea that guy had even walked there, and it was wild.
May not
But,
have.
yeah.
May not have. So don't, now if they're out doing stupid stuff, then that's a different story. But sometimes just walking through, if they're bedded down somewhere and somebody walks through, they're going to get up and move. So
Oh,
now you
sure.
have a chance at them coming by because they got disturbed out of where they were bedded down, and now they're walking around.
Yeah, you just never know. And once again, this place I hunted in Iowa, they get a lot of foot traffic. It was when I was there 2 weekends ago. There's a pretty good creek that goes through there with some trout in it, and a couple of fishermen had walked through. They weren't where I felt the deer were going to come from, but they were kind of chatting and stuff. I could hear them, when they were fishing and all that. And they walked through and they left. It wasn't 15 minutes, deer start coming out into that field and totally calm. So I
Yeah,
think they just, kind of get used to it a little bit too. Like two guys out fishing, what I don't think they care about.
yeah, and that's the thing when you're in places that they're so used to it, it doesn't really, you can't get mad at them or upset because you know what, they might kick that big buck up that was bedded down, would have bedded down until after shooting time.
No, absolutely.
I've
So
got an area that they come through pretty much at night. So like, okay, who's going to walk around all those fields, chase them over here during the daylight when I can shoot them? Because they come through at night. The lights get them moving.
yeah.
Yeah, get them moving around, walk around, disturb them where
You
they're
know,
at.
and again, like the whole conversation reminded me of something that happened to me last year. It was opening weekend in Illinois and hunting public, and I go out to a spot that I cannot wait to sit in. And it's a hike to get back there. And it's pretty gnarly terrain too. And I get back there and I hear a whistle and I look over and there's a guy in a tree stand like, oh dang, I guess I'm not hunting here tonight. And he actually waved me over, and it was still really early. And he's like, well, where are you headed to? And I'm like, I told him kind of where I wanted to go. He's like, that's where my buddy's at. And I'm like, you know what? I am not going to screw your guys' hunt up. I knew other spots on this land. I'm like, I'm just going to go there. I go all the way back to my truck, move my truck. And the long and short of this story, the next morning, I had an absolute giant walk underneath me. It was like probably 10 minutes before legal. So I couldn't shoot him anyway. But I still thought that was totally awesome to even be able to see a deer like this. I mean, I could
Yeah,
still see it, and I wouldn't have saw that if I didn't run into those guys the day before. So make the best of it and keep your head down and
yeah.
keep hunting.
Well, I've had stands up on public property, and then here 10 feet from my stand, somebody else put another stand up. They're like,
Oh, that's just kind of
uh,
cold hearted right there.
right. And here in Nebraska anyway, if you're on public property, you have a tree stand, first one in it gets to hunt it. Just because it's your stand doesn't mean you have the rights to hunt it whenever you want. If somebody's in it, you can't kick them out.
Yeah, that's how in Iowa, that's how it is. I had to write my DNR number on my stand, if I'd leave it up overnight. But if someone got there first, too bad, so sad for me.
Well, what I used to do on my stand, I had it, mine was a chain on one, so I had a chain. There's extra chain. So what I do is I take the platform, fold it up, run the chain through it, and put my lock on it. So you couldn't sit in it anyway. You could climb up there, but there's no way to sit because it was chained up. You had to have the lock or cut the lock. So then, so I go there, unlock it, and put the seat down, put the platform down and hunt it. When I get done, I'd lock it up, so nobody could actually sit in it. The ladder stands, yeah, it's kind of keeping me out of ladder stands, but right now I just have private property, so I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, that's nice.
Well, it's been great talking with you.
It was fun, Roy.
Yeah, I've got another appointment coming up here in a few minutes, so need to head out, get ready for it. And it's probably dinner time for you as well. time to go eat. But yeah, it's been great talking with you, and we'll definitely talk later. And let me know when you hose down your deer and how much better it works.
I can't believe that, but I'm definitely going to try it.
Yeah, try it and let me know.
It was a lot of fun, Roy. Thank you so much.
Yeah. My name is Roy Canterbury. I've been your host today on Archery Talk 101, and we'll see you on the next one.